Hello, everyone. It's me, Jim Mundy, the historian for the Union League Legacy Foundation, and welcome, hopefully, back to another episode of Mondays with Mundy. So when I began doing these over quite a year ago, I didn't know how to use PowerPoint as part of the presentation, but I've since learned how to do that. I've grown a brain cell or two, I think. And so what I would like to do then is revisit a program, one of the first ones I did, I think back in last April. And it concerns a life portrait of Abraham Lincoln. And I'm doing this because this video is being broadcast on Monday, February the 8th, and in just 4 days, Abraham Lincoln will be 158 years old. And even though Lincoln is no longer with us physically, obviously, but he's still with us in many other ways, intellectually, spiritually, if you will, emotionally, and most importantly, politically, because after all, it was his signing of the Emancipation Proclamation of January the 1st of 1863 that really changed the course of American history. So, and you'll see that in this painting. So I'm going to share my screen and the PowerPoint. Okay. I know that you can probably see a little bit there. There we go. And we do this from the beginning. All right. So I'm calling it Abraham Lincoln from Life. Okay. All right. So the Union League itself was organized on December 27th of 1862. And 3 days later, Edward Dalton Marchant, an artist living in Philadelphia and a future Union League member, would take a train ride to Washington, D.C. With a letter from another member named John W. Forney. And when Forney wrote a letter to Abraham Lincoln, Lincoln read it because John W. Forney was the Secretary of the United States Senate at the time. So he certainly got Abraham Lincoln's attention. Now, Marchant, as an artist, was born, as you can see, born in 1806, Edgartown, Massachusetts, out on Cape Cod. Largely self-trained as an artist, briefly studied under Gilbert Stuart in Boston, but was an itinerant artist, traveled up and down the East Coast, made it as far south as New Orleans before coming back and settling in Philadelphia in 1854, where he would stay until 1884, just a few years before he died. So Marchant, in between that, had become quite an accomplished portrait artist. And so he was the one who was, if you will, selected by these members of the League to paint Abraham Lincoln's portrait. So I want to read you the letter, because it's really neat that it still exists. Actually, it's in the Lincoln Papers at the Library of Congress. So this is a letter that Marchant carried with him to Washington, D.C. So here we go. Washington, D.C., December 30, 1862. My dear Mr. President, the bearer, Mr. E.D. Marchant, the eminent artist, has been empowered by a large body of your personal and political friends to paint your picture for the Hall of American Independence. A generous subscription is made, and he visits you to ask your acquiescence and to exhibit his testimonials. He will need little of your time. There is no likeness of you at Independence Hall. It should be there, and as Mr. Marchant is a most distinguished artist and is commended by the most powerful influences, I trust you will give him a favorable reception. Yours truly, J. W. Forney. Well, clearly, Lincoln agreed, because otherwise we wouldn't be here right now. So, and actually, Lincoln not only agreed, he went a step further. He actually invited Marchant to work and live in the White House for 4 months at the beginning of 1863 while Marchant painted the portrait. So, speaking of a portrait, here we go. And this is it. So this is what I talked about last April, but you couldn't see, but now you can. And we'll talk about it again, because it is my all-time favorite painting in the League's collection. I think it's also its most important for a number of different reasons. All right. So again, it's just 3 days after the League is organized, and it's the day before, right, Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation. But Marchant's beginning the portrait, let's say in February of 1863. So there's the proclamation on the table under the crook of Lincoln's left arm. In his right hand, he still has the quill that he used to sign the proclamation, and the inkwell is off his left elbow. Now, over his left shoulder, in the upper right-hand corner, Marchant has painted a statue of the goddess of liberty, because after all, Lincoln freed the slaves. And so metaphorically, at least, liberty has now trampled the chains of slavery wide open. All right? That's a great image to have there. Okay? Now, behind Lincoln, you see those columns. They could be Greek and Roman. Symbolically, I think they represent the democratic form of government adopted by the Americans on July the 4th of 1776. After all, this was a republic. It is a republic. We consider ourselves the oldest democratic form of government, right, in the modern world. And there you are. And so that is the power that Lincoln used to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. All right. Now, if you look behind the column on the left-hand side, you'll see that it looks like the sun is rising, right? So maybe there's a new day dawning in American history because now slaves are free, right? Now, it makes sense, doesn't it? And so that's a wonderful amount of symbolism and imagery to put in a painting over such an historic document, because if you're going to hang this painting in Independence Hall, which, by the way, at that point was the heart of Philadelphia. I mean, socially, politically, economically, the building was open 7 days a week. Everybody walked through it. So everybody could see this. And keep in mind, too, that Philadelphia had a large number of Southern families living in the city, and they were living in that neighborhood specifically. So maybe this was the League's way of kind of reminding people who their president was and who they should be supporting. And look what he just did. He freed the slaves. So I think it's a great image. Just a little bit more about Marchant himself, because he left a few letters behind, which is really good to have, because he described what it was like to work in the White House with Lincoln. And this is what he said to an artist friend of his named Daniel Huntington, quote, "He was seldom twice alike. Hence the endless variety observable in the photographs we have of him. Though indelibly impressed upon my mind during a residence of 4 months at the White House, they are the most difficult to describe that I ever knew, because Lincoln was the most difficult subject who ever taxed the skills of an artist." So interesting, that one. But there's one more that I would like to read, because to me this really tells us how Marchant felt about his work. He said that, so he characterized his experience as more truly a labor of love than I am often permitted to perform. So great portrait, great painting, wonderful symbolism. And for all of you League members who are watching, don't know the last time you went to the building. It's been tough this last year, but I would encourage you all to go to Lincoln Hall and look to the north center alcove, and there you will see Abraham Lincoln's portrait hanging up. And go over and take a look at it. Just spend a few minutes looking at it and think about the symbolism, but think about how important Lincoln signing that proclamation was on January the 1st of 1863. And for those of you who are not members who might be watching this, normally every year we have an open house in February on the Saturday closest to Lincoln's birthday, but obviously because of the coronavirus this year, we're not doing that. Maybe we'll do it later in the year. There's the Legacy Foundation. So keep your eyes open on emails, other kinds of announcements and things like that, because maybe you'll get your chance to come into the League House, tour the building, and see this phenomenal painting. And I hope you get that chance. So all right, that does it for this week's episode. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. It is good for all of us to remember Father Abraham, and we can do that by attending our annual Lincoln Day program, which will be Friday, February the 12th. And you can see it will be virtual, well, since everything's virtual at this point in time. But I cannot encourage you enough to watch this one, because it features Professor David Blight, the Pulitzer Prize-winning historian from Yale University, whose biography on Frederick Douglass won all kinds of prizes. And Blight is a fantastic speaker. Douglass is a fantastic subject with connections to the Union League from the very beginning. We've talked about them in the past at some programs. So please watch the program on Friday, February the 12th. I think you will be greatly impressed. So that's it. So thanks for watching, everybody. It's still not safe out there yet. So everybody stay safe, stay well, get your virus shots, and hopefully we'll see you next week. So thanks to the Legacy Foundation for sponsoring these weekly episodes. I hope everybody's enjoying them. I know I do. So hopefully we'll see you next week.